process, what we're going to do is we're going to use Boomer from Gears of War. And this is the work of Kevin Lanning. He modeled the high and low poly mesh, and the animator is Scott Dawson. The animator and the actor is Scott Dawson. So here we see Scott performing a walk cycle. And basically, Boomer is one example of applying data onto a very different proportion character. And what Motion Builder allows us to do is to make sure that character moves exactly how we want him to, even if the original actor didn't. And what Scott did for this was he made sure that he had a lumbering movement. He would tie a diving belt around him with weights and ankle weights and carry a big block of wood to really accentuate the look. But once the data is targeted onto the character, you can also use Motion Builder to exaggerate the hits or create loops or exaggerate falls or other movements. So it's pretty useful. Now, some of our animators prefer to work completely in Motion Builder and others don't. Depends on preference, really, before it goes into the editor. And here's another example of animation, but through a weapon. And this is from Unreal Tournament 3. And if you're familiar with the series, we consider like weapons kind of characters in their own right. Here's an example of a weapon that James Hawkins has made, and this part of the concept is kind of interesting because since it's a mechanical object and it's pretty complicated, he had to explain in his concept how it works, and the way he did that was through making a rough model and a rough animation. And once again, the idea is kind of to use it as a start and to elaborate on it. Although for weapons, there's less room for changing things since most of the primary function has been established. Here's the final version here. And the idea, once again, is just elaborate on what's already been made. So, like what I did here is, modeled the high poly and processed it, and then just did the animation cycle, but this time thinking of the weight of the weapon also. Trying to give it a gas-powered feel, like something that barely works, or barely holding together. So now let's go over the texturing pipeline. We're going to go over how you can use Deep Paint specifically for modeling or texturing organics, as well as Photoshop. And to do this, we're going to use Bishop from Unreal Tournament 3. And at this point, what I've done is I've modeled the high poly, and already processed the low poly head, and he's in already. So we're ready to texture. And Deep Paint 3D from Right Hemisphere is really good for painting organics because you don't have to have seams, and if you're working on something that's pretty much one layer, like organics, it's pretty useful to knock things out pretty quick. It has projection paint, so it allows you to paint on the model in 2D, and then it applies and kind of wraps around the 3D mesh once we change views. And so what I like to do is just apply, apply a reference photo, as you can see here, into projection paint. And you can also bring it back into Photoshop and adjust it as you want, because it'll output the image exactly as you see that little screen capture in Photoshop, and you can tweak it there, bring it back into Deep Paint 3D exactly as that, projected onto the mesh. So we just repeat the process until we're finished. And with the exception of the normal map for organics, all the other maps are a derivative of the diffuse map, whether that's fall off or Fresnel or specular transmission, specular power, so on and so forth. And these are the different maps as we add it to the model in Engine. And here's the final result here. What I'd like to do now is go over how you can texture hard surfaces. And I'll do something a little different here. I'll just show how our rendered texture maps that we originally made kind of come back around and are useful for making all these different bitmaps. And what we do is, use the render texture diffuse as a really useful selection set between organics, hard surfaces, however you want to section it off. And you can use the blue channel, the normal map, and place that over it as a multiply layer And what that'll do is we're not going to draw anything on it, and we're not even going to keep it in the final version. But what you can do is you can create another layer under that and sort of trace dents or scratches that correspond to the forms of the model. So it's really all about correspondence, and that's what helps to reinforce the normal map. So once we're done with the diffuse, you can make a copy of that and add an ambient occlusion as a multiply layer. We will keep that because it's going to put the shadows in the points of intersection. And everything else, as you can see, is derivative of the diffuse map. Once again, just to remind you, these are the portions here, and it doesn't really show off very well here, so my apologies. I think the color's a bit off. But the parts that are highlighted are used over and over, and given reasonable real estate on the map, and that ensures that if we ever have to bring the resolution down for some reason, that it still retains some pretty decent detail. And here's the final version of Akasha in Engine. This model is maybe 18,000 polygons, something like that. I forget how much it was. And this is Loc here. Loc is about 20,000 polygons in Engine also. Here's some close-ups in Engine so you can see. Loc as well in Engine. And at Epic, what we like to do is like our in-game characters also double up as cinematic characters. So that's why we take a lot of time to make sure we get a lot of detail in there, because you don't know how it'll be used. It might be used, in a cinematic. It might be used in a poster, that's about the size of this wall. You don't know, so you like to cover the bases and get that going. Here's just a screenshot here. But for this part of it, I just want to reiterate to use base models or create base models when you can, and to use paint overs to quickly jot your ideas down, instead of modeling, because it's a great and efficient way to test something. And if you're involved in processing the normal maps, use render to texture, because you can take advantage of the filters, and you can also create selection sets for your diffuse maps. So that's pretty cool too. So now I'm going to just kind of go back to the basic stuff and just talk about just drawing, just fundamentals of drawing. My background, I guess I should explain. I was originally, when I first went to university, I wanted to be in 3D animation, something 3D animation related, and I went straight into trying to learn Photoshop and Alias Sketch at the time. I'm dating myself, but I went on an internship at Walt Disney, and when I was talking to one of the animation artists there, I was kind of surprised because I brought my portfolio of all the stuff that I'd done in Photoshop and all that, and I thought it was cool at the time. And then I also had some gestures which I didn't really take really seriously at the time that I had drawn about a week or two ago. Well, they didn't like any of the finished stuff, but they did like the gestures, and I couldn't figure that out. And the thing is that being able to express an idea, which is basically drawing, being able to quickly jot down your ideas and explain to somebody is really critical. And there used to be a time in the industry where if the budget for a character was 400 polygons, and you had a guy that knew how to knew all the things needed to know about a program, but didn't necessarily have a solid foundation in drawing or sketching. And then you had another guy that knew how to draw really well, but didn't really know the programs really well. The final results that they're going to make the same character might be similar, because 400 polys, you might have a guy that's still like the box of a head and his nose is a triangle. So, how different can that really be with that budget? But with this latest generation of games, the standards have gone up, the budgets have gone up, and so the programs have gotten easier to use, like Mudbox or ZBrush, and that's exciting in terms of the opportunity to be able to make realistic stuff. But there's challenges also, because now you actually have to know what a person looks like if you're going to make them photoreal or close to photoreal. So that's a good thing to know. So I got that education by accident. That's basically what